Welcome back to Ladies of Another View. I'm back, and we are going to be joined now by a Father Jason Charron, and he's the pastor of Holy Trinity Ukrainian Catholic Church in Carnegie, Pennsylvania. He just returned from rescuing 22 orphans, getting them out of the Ukraine into the Czech Republic.
Wow.
Welcome to the show, Father Jason.
Thank you for having me. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen. And I was following your travels. You were there with Matt Fradd, and I saw YouTube videos. What a story. I'm going to let you tell it, though. How did you even end up in Ukraine?
Well, it is quite a story, but it's not my story. It's a girl named Karina and a parishioner of mine named Anita and Alan Sherwood. We helped them get in touch with some people in Ukraine regarding adoptions, because my wife is from Ukraine and I've lived there, and 2 of our 7 children were born there. So we have a lot of connections to Ukraine. And, they started the process, and by Christmas time, this little girl was visiting them for a 4-week Christmas stay. And everyone just fell in love with her. And by the time she had to go back to Ukraine in January, Alan said to this little girl, if anything bad ever happens, I'll come and help you. And he didn't think anything of it really, but orphans are often exposed to unfulfilled promises in life. And he didn't want that to happen again. So when news broke that Russia invaded Ukraine unjustly, and war had broken out, he woke up to the news, and immediately his promise to this little girl came back to his mind. And so he came over to the church and said, this is what's going on, and I've got to live out. I have to fulfill this promise to this little girl. How am I going to get over there? He didn't know the language. He didn't know anyone there. He didn't know the lay of the land. But he knew that he had to fulfill his promise. So I received permission from my bishop and from my wife to go over and help him rescue this little girl. And the director of the orphanage said, he just didn't know what was going to happen. War had broken out, but he said, I can't just give you one. If you're going to rescue one, you got to rescue all 22.
Wow.
Whoa. Wow. And so you went to get one little girl. How do you transport 22 orphans?
Yeah, well, Ukrainians are the masters of making do. I mean, anyone from North Dakota or from Manitoba or the Midwest, they know that these are sturdy stock people. They came and they arrived on the prairie, and they lived in the harshest conditions back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They don't mind squeezing 26, 27 people into a 15-passenger van and driving for 8.5 hours. And that's what they did. A bomb went off. The Russians dropped a bomb on a gas line about 4 kilometers from the front door of the orphanage. A Russian jet went over the roof, and they knew it was time to get out of Dodge. So they drove 26 people in a 15-passenger van for 8.5 hours. We met them in Lviv, and then we did some paperwork. You don't want to just take people across the border without your T's crossed and your I's dotted. Did another 7.5-hour bus ride to the border through the mountains of the Carpathian Mountains. And then we did another 8-hour bus ride through Slovakia into Czech Republic. And those kids were great throughout the whole thing. They never complained. Just filled with gratitude and joy. So that's basically how we did it. That's the short version.
So that's not something that you could just take on your own. You had to have had help from those that were at the orphanage and other places. How did you get the kids actually across the border without problems?
Well, that was through the work of the guardian angels. And I'm not being funny when I say that. It was, they're military checkpoints. They come out with the guns, and they want to make sure that everything is there are no Russian agents creeping around. And that's a little intimidating for when you're 3 years old and you see, men coming on with rifles and battle fatigues and whatnot. And then it's a little suspicious that you have these, two American guys, because, let's face it, in our world, there are a lot of really evil people, crawling around with trafficking in children and whatnot. So we did have an attorney with us who had done the paperwork to say that this is, legitimate case. And unfortunately, none of the children had their passports. In their, rush to get out of Kiev, the Kiev area. The director managed to gather together what paperwork he could, but their passports were actually at an office for the for orphans in Kiev, so they didn't even have passports. And we had to explain to the because in Ukraine you have to go through customs leaving the country and border control, and then you have to go through border control and customs going into the neighboring country. So we don't have that here in the States. If you want to leave and go up to Canada, you don't have to tell the U.S. government you're leaving. You just drive, and the first checkpoint, or if you will, border control is with the Canadians. And they might give you some maple syrup along the way, but here you have to show your passport. And they wanted to know what's going on here. 21 kids, 22 orphans, no passport. And the director and myself explained to him what the situation was, that we needed to get them to safety. If you're just trying to, hide and protect your wife and your kid, and maybe your pet dog or something, it's pretty easy to find accommodations. That's 3 people and a dog. But what about if you have 3 or 5 kids? What about if you have 22? It's not easy to do that. And it took some phone calls. We had to find the proper border crossing. We had, because there's a 3-day wait at some of the borders. Some of the borders had a 4.5, 5-day wait. That's what I was told. And so we had to find a border crossing which had a wait time that was appropriate for all these kids. And by the time we left our rendezvous point and did the 7-hour drive to the border, we had picked up other families, people who were desperate to get out. So then we had to get a bigger bus, and everybody wants to get a bus. So we ended up getting 43 people out of there. And it was kind of chaotic, but the people who came through were the Catholic, the Greek Catholics in Lviv, who let us use their seminary, and the Eastern Rite Greek Catholics in Slovakia, who put us up and gave us a bus.